This is Kathleen, and also happy fall, y'all. This is going to be a video about missing Ben Tyner. And it's really how this case got started is really kind of like a horror movie or a scary passage from a book, because Ben Tyner's horse was fully saddled up and just started, came out of nowhere, and a man saw it there with no rider. It was a riderless horse out there in the wilderness, and they discovered that the horse belonged to Ben Tyner, who is a 6'4", 230-pound cowboy. So his horse was found, and his horse was okay, didn't appear to have any injuries, and it was fully, like I said, saddled up like somebody had been riding it, but only the horse was found. Ben Tyner has never been found, and he went missing, or was last seen January 26th of 2019. And he was missing from the Nicola Ranch in Merritt, British Columbia. That's Canada, of course. And he has brown eyes and a dark brown hair with a beard. And as you can see in this missing poster picture of him. So how does a 6'4" young man, he was 31 years old when he went missing, just disappear? And they can't find him or figure out exactly what happened to him. If you have any information on this case, by the way, you can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS, and you can remain anonymous if you like. And there's always, you can do it by phone, and you can also go to crimestoppers.com to report it online if you wish. But anyway, let's get into this case, because I found out about this case on another channel, and I'll put the link below this video of the channel where I found out about this case. This is the first I ever remember hearing about this case, but maybe I missed it, over the years. Been busy, and then just missed this one. And it happened in Canada also, and obviously I live in the States, so maybe that's why maybe I didn't hear much about this case, or I just missed it, because it's a very interesting case. A cowboy went missing, his horse was found, and he wasn't. And at first, the police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, investigated. They searched for him. They investigated, and at first, they thought he disappeared on his own, maybe, or he was hurt or something, or maybe harmed himself or something. But then a couple years later, they came out and said they think it was a homicide. And why they think it's a homicide, I'm not sure. But I'm going to investigate and see if I can figure out, because the police haven't released that information of why, but there have been some sources that came out and gave information about why the police probably think it's a homicide now. So you can get an idea of what he looked like. And there he is, and that's his dog. And his dog was not with him. He left his dog home the day he went missing, which people said was unusual, because normally he'd like to take his dog with him everywhere. There's some more pictures of him. See if and this is his family after he went missing. This is his brother and his mother and father. And after he went missing, of course, they did a press conference asking people for help finding him. So let's get into an article about this case. This is from the National Post in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And here they have a picture of him. Ben Tyner, the 32-year-old cowboy missing in the British Columbia backcountry. If there's anyone who embodies the cowboy archetype, rugged and dependable, it's Ben Tyner, family and friends say. When he's not riding horses or gathering cattle, Tyner is usually busy making custom chaps, spurs, and whips. He wouldn't have it any other way. It's his passion, says Jason DeBarard, a family friend in Laramie, Wyoming. He's a true American cowboy. Family and friends were hoping for the best Wednesday as a search for the missing 32-year-old cowboy dragged into its third day in British Columbia's backcountry. Tyner, who was born in Florida and raised in Wyoming, had taken on a new job about 3 months ago as ranch manager at the Nicola Ranch in Merritt, British Columbia, about 3 hours east of Vancouver. Tyner was last seen Saturday afternoon. He may have rode into the backcountry along an area called Swankum Ridge. Kim Robertson, a local tracker and hunting guide, said he found a riderless saddled horse Monday morning. It was missing a rein, but otherwise had good rigging on it. The horse was a bit spooked, but he managed to calm it down and tie it to a tree. He then went and fetched other local ranchers who later brought it back to town and confirmed it belonged to Tyner. The weather Wednesday was said to be partly cloudy with a high of 2 degrees Celsius and overnight lows of negative 3 degrees Celsius. Search and rescue notes obtained by Post Media News state that Tyner is 6'4" and 230 pounds and was last seen wearing a red wool cap with black trim and cowboy boots. The weather Wednesday was said to be partly cloudy with a high of 2 degrees Celsius and overnight lows of negative 3 degrees Celsius. He's a rancher, so we believe he was dressed for the weather, probably had proper gear, but there's no indication that he took anything to spend the night, Merritt RCMP Tracy Dunsmore told CFJC Tuesday. Usually they have a lighter or something on them. He's not a smoker, but in our investigation we determined that he would probably at least carry a lighter or something to make a fire. We haven't been able to locate anything like that so far. The Nicola Valley Search and Rescue Team was leading the operation, which include teams from other parts of British Columbia, ranchers on horseback, search dogs, and drones. Tyner's parents, Richard and Jennifer Tyner, and younger brother Jack, traveled to Merritt from Wyoming to take part in the search. Reached briefly on her cell phone Wednesday morning, Jennifer told National Post they were just going into a debrief and likely wouldn't be reachable for some time as cell reception was spotty. Later in the morning, Richard texted his sister Judy Sanders in Kissimmee, Florida, to say he and Jennifer were surveying the area via helicopter while Jack was on horseback, accompanied by Ben's dogs. At one point, Jack found what was believed to be a broken rein from his brother's horse, Sanders said. In an earlier Facebook post, Jack wrote, "My big brother and my family are in desperate need of prayers. He is big, strong, and tough, and we are all staying optimistic. Just please pray that we find him. So grateful to all the search and rescue volunteers and cowboys looking. We're coming for you, big brother. I love you." The officer manager at Nicola Ranch told Post Media News it was totally out of character for Tyner to leave the ranch without notifying someone. "None of this is adding up. It's a flipping mystery," Tammy Straya said. "It's so horrible. None of us have ate or slept. We're worried sick." Straya added Tyner's horse returned in good condition with nothing to indicate that it had been attacked. "Something might have scared it, but there's no blood, no spur marks, no scratches. It's his horse, and it's a gentle horse," Straya said. According to Tyner's Facebook page, his career has taken him to ranches all over the world. From Russia to Idaho, Instagram posts in recent months featured some of his leather work, including custom shotgun leggings made from water buffalo hide, and a 10-foot bullwhip just needs to be waxed and treated and it's ready to go, he wrote. From the time he was a boy, Tyner was always around horses and cattle, and Larry Sanders, his uncle in Florida, to be a cowboy, that's all he wanted to do. Tyner's parents moved the family to Wyoming about 20 years ago and started to build a herd that has now grown to about 100 cattle, Judy Sanders said. Before his move to British Columbia, Ben lived on the Wyoming ranch and became caretaker of the operation after his father suffered an injury, she said. He's a very fine young man, quiet and reserved, very mannerly, a little shy but takes real pride in what he does. DeBerard said Tyner never hesitated to lend a helping hand to neighbors back home. Anytime you needed Ben to gather cows or brand cows, or if you needed him with a horse trailer, he'd drop whatever he was doing to help somebody. A solid, strong guy. Always eager to learn, Tyner jumped at the opportunity to work in British Columbia, he said. Who wouldn't want to go to a big cattle ranch in Canada, a new horizon, a new way to see things? DeBarge said he tried texting Tyner on Sunday and found it odd when he didn't get a reply. That's when he learned that he was missing. Just pray for him and his family. That's all we can do. News. And it says it has been 19 days since Ben Tyner was last seen in the Nicola Valley, and there are no new leads in the case. The Cowboys family, who traveled to Merritt after Tyner went missing during the weekend of January 26, returned to their home in Wyoming February 13th, but made one final plea to the community before they went. Our son loved life and touched so many people during his life. If you have any information that can lead to us finding him, no matter how insignificant it might seem, we would be so truly grateful, said Ben's mother, Jennifer Tyner, at a press conference in Merritt. After 7 days of combing the Nicola Valley, Merritt RCMP requested support from the Southeast District Major Crime Unit in the investigation of 32-year-old Tyner. While the official search was suspended on Sunday after 7 days of searching, the investigation is not over, Merritt RCMP Staff Sergeant Lauren Wood said in a news release. We are thankful to have the expertise and resources available from the SED-MICU to assist us as the investigation transitions from a short-term search efforts. The Major Crime Unit is lending a hand to ensure nothing is missed in the investigation and to provide additional resources. The Major Crime Unit will be assisting until such time Mr. Tyner is located or his body is located and determination of cause of death has been made. Sergeant Janelle Jehoet wrote in an email to the Herald. They will continue to interview witnesses. We may re-interview witnesses and looking at other evidence, tips, and information that comes in as the weeks go on, said Merritt RCMP Constable Tracy Dunsmore. Tyner was reported missing to the Merritt RCMP on January 28th after a local hunter found his riderless horse in the backcountry. The experience has been heartbreaking for the entire family, said Jennifer Tyner. Our hearts are shattered and our lives have been thrown into turmoil, she said. Ben's father, Richard Tyner, described his son as a fine human being. Through tears at the press conference in Merritt, Jack Tyner, Ben's brother, echoed his father's sentiment. Honest as they come, just a pure soul. He wasn't the kind of guy who would get into any trouble or cause any trouble. He is always there for anybody. He would help anybody for whatever they needed. That is the kind of guy my brother was, Jack said. The hole in our family will never be replaced. I won't ever hear him laugh, feel his strong handshake again, or hear his deep voice. RCMP will continue to investigate the case, Dunsmore said. She added they are still considering the possibility that somebody drove Tyner up Swacum Mountain. When asked what the support has been like during their stay in Merritt, Jennifer Tyner expressed gratitude to the community. It's been overwhelming. We can't believe the support we've had in the community here and the people at home. We can't say enough for everyone and how much they have done for us, she said. Were from when he first went missing and about 19 days after he went missing. So he was never found, and then a couple of years later, the police released information that they now think his disappearance was a crime or homicide. It says 2 years after he went missing, RCMP say they believe Ben Tyner, a Merritt cowboy, was the victim of homicide. His family is offering a $15,000 reward for information that leads to finding Tyner and to the arrest of the person or persons responsible for his death. According to a police news release, Tyner disappeared January 26, 2019. He was a worker on a Merritt area ranch. His riderless horse, discovered on a logging road off Highway 97 near Winnie Flats, prompted a large-scale search effort. Tyner's parents and brother have released a video plea for information that could give the family closure. In it, his father, Richard Tyner, describes Ben as a gentle giant who traveled across the U.S. into Russia and Australia before moving to Merritt. To have to live with Ben's disappearance is the most painful, excruciating experience ever, he said through tears. We are constantly praying that someone who knows something will come forward. RCMP Southeast District Major Crime Unit is in charge of the investigation. The release states that in order to protect their ongoing efforts, police cannot release the details that lead them to believe Tyner is a homicide victim. So the police haven't released any information. This article is from 2021, January 28, 2021, 2 years after he went missing. So about 2 years later, the police were thinking it was a homicide, and even though they still hadn't found him. But apparently they found some evidence or came across something that made them think that he was a crime victim. I read an unconfirmed report, because remember, the police haven't released any confirmation of this, but I read an unconfirmed report that it had to do that Ben's cell phone was found with a young man, I believe a teenager, possibly older than that though. Young man had his cell phone, a young man who worked at a store in Merritt that Ben Tyner had apparently been to or frequented. I don't know how often he went there or what, but apparently they found his cell phone to be in the possession of a young man who worked at a store in Merritt. But that is an confirmed report, because the police have not confirmed anything. They haven't released any information. And this is Canada, so they may release a lot less information than even the United States does. Even though this case is from 2019 and it's been that's 8 years about, or 6 years, excuse me. So it's 2025 now, so 2019, obviously 6 years. So the police aren't releasing information, but there are rumors or unconfirmed reports out there. And it's a person who worked at the store with a young man who supposedly had the cell phone that released this information out to somebody. I think he was interviewed for a podcast or something like that. So there is information out there, but it's unconfirmed. So don't take my word on that. It's just information that I have come across. So this, if somebody, first off, if somebody had his cell phone, how stupid are they? I mean, if you harm somebody, he's been gone for a while. If you've murdered somebody, why would you keep their cell phone? Because cell phones are traceable. This isn't, the 1990s. they can trace cell phones and all that. So why would somebody keep his cell phone? Was he using the cell phone? If this report is true, was he using the cell phone, or did he just have it in his possession and somehow they found it? They were investigating him for some reason and they found the phone, but it was off. Or did he have the phone using it or something? Or could Ben have given him the phone? Well, I guess not, because they would have said that, wouldn't they? Or the man who reported it, his coworker who supposedly reported it, would have said, well, he said that Ben gave it to him or something like that. So I don't know all the details and facts about the cell phone being found. I don't even know if it's true, but I kind of think it is true, that that's what led police to believe that he was a crime victim. But apparently they still couldn't come up with any evidence to charge anybody or find Ben's body. Like maybe the police interviewed the young man who they found in possession of the phone, and he said, well, somebody gave it to me, or I bought it from somebody else. Like whoever harmed Ben and possibly stole his cell phone could have sold it, and the young man who had it didn't realize that he was buying a missing person's cell phone. So I don't know about all that, but apparently something to do with a cell phone is one of the reasons that the police think Ben was a crime victim, a homicide victim. And it would make sense, because his body has not been found after all this time. And it's like somebody purposely hid his body or did something to hide his body, or to, do away with his body so that it wouldn't be found. And of course, that would mean that's because they murdered him and they didn't want to be found out for having murdered him. Because if he harmed himself or just fell off his horse, had a medical emergency, you would think that he would have been found. And also, where he was, or where his horse was found, they say it wouldn't have been possible for him to travel there on his horse or just, walking his horse, that he had to have been driven to the location where his horse was found, meaning that he rode in a vehicle that had a trailer on it for his horse. So his horse had to have been taken to the spot where it was found in a trailer, and that Ben must have traveled somewhere in a truck and trailer with somebody else. Unless, because I was thinking, this is where I just start giving my opinions and speculating of what, because it's unsolved and it's been 6 years, and to me that's a cold case. So it won't hurt to speculate or guess or think what could have transpired. Remember, I don't have access to the police reports because nobody except the police do. And so the media, doesn't have that information either, because it's a very active, well, I don't know how active the investigation is, but it's still a very much open case. It's not, they haven't charged anybody or found his body, so it's still an open, active case. But it has been since 2019, and it's now 2025. So some theories or guesses that I have. Well, at first, when I read that his horse was found running, I assume it was running, it wasn't still, it was running in a field or wherever it was found, where the witness found it, that it was fully tacked, fully saddled up and everything. So, at first I was thinking, well, he had a medical emergency and fell off his horse, or he had an accident, something spooked his horse and he fell off the horse, and he's somewhere, wherever, because the horse could have got so spooked that it just ran and ran and ran, and he could be somewhere and they just haven't found him yet. Maybe he fell in a hole. Maybe he wasn't on his horse at the time. He was standing beside his horse, walking, and he fell in a hole. And I say fell in a hole because there have been people who have fallen into old wells and disappeared for a long time, and then years later they find their bodies in a well. That's happened at like parks in the United States. Like somebody goes camping and they walk into a well and they're not found until years later, and it's just by luck that they're found. So could there's be something up there in the back country like that, an old mining hole or something like that he could have fallen into, and like a medical emergency, if he was riding his horse or walking next to his horse and had a heart attack or something like that, some medical emergency, and his horse just got spooked and ran or didn't know what to do. His owner's dead, so he just runs away. Because they said in the article that the witness said the horse looked spooked, but otherwise unharmed. So the horse was spooked. But then I found out the information that they believe that he was driven to his location, that Ben was driven to his location, and his horse were driven there in a truck and trailer, that they didn't get there on their own. In other words, the horse couldn't have traveled to where the horse was found on its own without being in a vehicle to get there, a horse trailer. So then that made me think, well, whoever took Ben and the horse there, they never came forward. So that would definitely mean that would have to be a crime, because if you're not guilty of anything, why wouldn't you come forward and say, oh yeah, I saw Ben on this such and such date and he asked me if I could haul him and his horse somewhere, or I invited him out to my land or to do something or to help me with something. Because remember, they said Ben was very nice and he was always very helpful and willing to help. Because somebody had created a ruse to get him somewhere for whatever reason, and Ben willingly went, and then they did something to him for whatever reason. So I obviously, like the police think it's a homicide. I do too. I don't think he harmed himself or had a medical emergency by himself due to the fact that they say that he was driven to where he went missing by somebody else. But then I thought, well, how do they know where Ben went missing? Just because his horse was found at a certain location doesn't mean that Ben was there with the horse or that Ben rode the horse. So it got me to thinking what was happening back at the Nicola Ranch. Co-worker problems, employee problems, because he was a manager. So did he have employee problems or co-worker problems or boss problems? Could there have been some drama or issues with people at the ranch? He lived on the ranch because he negotiated that as part of his salary deal to be able to live on the ranch rather than having to go, you know, rent a house or buy his own house or whatever. So he lived there on the ranch, and he was the ranch manager. Did something happen at the ranch, and then somebody hauled his horse further away from the ranch to make it appear that maybe he just went missing somewhere else and had some kind of accident or something? Because they've never found any of Ben's stuff, at least from the information I get from reading news articles. The police have not released any information that they have found any of his items, like, you know, his clothing, cowboy hat, any of his personal items, a wallet or anything like that, ID, a lighter. You know, they say cowboys carry lighters because, you know, cold weather, you want to be able to start a fire or whatever. To my understanding, the police haven't found anything, or they haven't released the information that they found anything, other than, like I said, that unconfirmed report that they think his cell phone was in the hands of some young man who worked at a store in Merritt, Canada. So could something have happened at the ranch, and something, you know, bad happened? He got in a fight, somebody accidentally killed him. But I say whatever happened to him, it had to be like a gunshot, maybe a lucky knife strike, because he was 6'4" and 230 pounds. You know, people refer to him as a gentle giant. That, you know, so he obviously probably wasn't a violent man. Could he defend himself in a fight? Just because he's a big man doesn't necessarily mean he's a good fighter. But did a fight happen, or did somebody purposely want to do him in for some reason? You know, what are the reasons for homicides? Well, they usually involve greed, jealousy, lust, or love. Those are like the three main ones. I think there's another one. I can't think of it right now, but jealousy, greed, lust. Was somebody jealous of him? A coworker, an employee? He was a very well-educated cowboy. He worked at various ranches around the world: Australia, Russia, United States. In college, he majored in food production. So, was somebody jealous of him for some reason? Was there a love interest? Was somebody jealous that somebody they liked him or something? I haven't read anything about, you know, him having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, just in case. I don't know if he's gay or not, but I haven't read anything about that. But could somebody have been jealous of him regarding somebody he was dating or wanted to date or something? And then greed. Because I don't know how much money he carried on his person. And I'm sure, you know, his bank accounts or debit cards, credit cards were investigated by the police, hopefully, and to see if any activity had been on them since he went missing, to see if maybe he ran off somewhere and was still using his debit and credit cards. Did they find his wallet back at the ranch where he was living? I don't know. That information isn't out there. So I don't know. I know that they said that he left his dog home and other personal items that he normally would take with him. But if somebody says, I'm going to take you somewhere, or will you come with me to help me with something, you may not necessarily, okay, well, I'm going to leave the dog here because I'm going to do something that I don't need the dog for, and I don't want the dog around or whatever. Or like I was thinking, could he have been dead and that's why he didn't take his dog or other personal possessions that they did find back at his home on the ranch, wherever he was living? I don't know if it's a room or a house, whatever. If he left personal belongings behind and his dog that he usually would take with him pretty much everywhere is what I've read, was there a reason he couldn't take the dog along with him, or did whoever he rode with request that he leave the dog behind? Was it an emergency situation? Or is he already dead and where his horse was found had nothing to do with the location of where Ben is at? People in the area. It says, into thin air, Dean Morrison, Luke Neville, and Ben Tyner, missing men around BC's interior. Nicola Valley. BC's interior region has been the location of interest for a handful of missing persons investigations, all within a few years of each other, though none have ever been officially linked. In this episode of Into Thin Air, we explore 3 incidents where middle-aged men have gone missing in the Nicola Valley and Gold Country areas over a 6-year span. And so there is a video. I can't watch it on here. It won't let me play it, but there is a show called Into Thin Air that explores these 3 cases. It says, Highway 5A, the old Merritt Highway, runs right by where Dean Morrison was last seen on October 22nd, 2013 at the Stump Lake Ranch. The 44-year-old, who had been working as a contract painter at the ranch, left the ranch the day he went missing, but he never returned. In previous interviews, his mother, Elizabeth, described some of the difficulties Morrison had been dealing with at the time of his disappearance. The father of 3 had recently separated from his wife, and he had just been let go from his job at the ranch. The morning of the day he was last seen, Morrison wasn't able to start his vehicle, which was still at the ranch property. A tow truck had been called, but Dean was already gone by the time it arrived a few hours later. Once he'd been reported missing to RCMP, police and search and rescue teams combed the area. They covered the Stump Lake Ranch property and the area surrounding it, along with the land lining the old Merritt Highway. The official searches were followed by searches conducted by friends, family, and community members who wanted to put their own eyes on the area as well. In 2016, 3 years after Dean went missing, his mother hired a private eye to look into the case. Despite this addition and follow-up searches from Kamloops Search and Rescue and Hummingbird drone teams, nothing has ever been found to advance the investigation. So it sounds like he was having life problems. And this is Dean Kelly Morrison right here in this picture on the left of my screen. And so, could he have went off to harm himself? Apparently he couldn't even crank up his vehicle to leave the property that he had been fired from, so I guess he walked off. And then the other case, Luke Neville, further up the interior, the Spence's Bridge area was the focus on search efforts following the disappearance of Luke Neville. The 48-year-old was last seen October 9, 2017 in the Spence's Bridge area, where he had been living and working as a renovation contractor. Adding to the oddity of his disappearance was how his vehicle had been found. Luke Neville drove a white Ford E20 van, and the day after he was last seen, the van was located burned along a Forest Service road about 20 kilometers out of Spence's Bridge. The case was quickly deemed suspicious, and the RCMP Southeast District Major Crimes Unit got involved. About a year after Luke was reported missing, police issued another call for information stating that circumstances can change over time, which may make it easier for someone to come forward with information about what may have happened. Luke Neville was originally from eastern Canada and worked as a firefighter for several years alongside his brothers. Eventually, he moved to BC and landed in Spence's Bridge, where he'd been living for more than a decade before his disappearance. 15 months after he was reported missing, Luke's brother Mark made the trip from Ottawa to put up billboards around Spence's Bridge and to speak at a media event with the RCMP. Mark Neville explained that police told the family Luke may have been the victim of foul play, and he urged anyone who knew what happened to do the right thing and share that info with investigators. However, since then, no further investigational updates have been publicly shared by the RCMP, though Neville's case remains active as in the public call for tips and information. So this is Luke Neville right here. So Dean Morrison went missing 2013, and then Luke Neville in 2017, and of course Ben went missing 2019. And this is what they say about Ben's case. It says, a little more than an hour's drive southeast of Spence's Bridge lies the Nicola Valley, where a widespread search was launched in the winter of 2019 for Ben Tyner. The 32-year-old cowboy had been working as a manager at the Nicola Ranch for 3 months before he disappeared. Tyner was last seen in the afternoon of January 26, 2019. 2 days later, a Merritt area tracker came upon his riderless horse, which was wandering alone on a logging road in full tack with a broken rein. The first few days of search efforts saw more than 50 search and rescue members from around BC come in to help, as well as 24 cowboys and volunteers from some nearby First Nations in the Nicola Valley. Tyner's family also flew up from Wyoming to help. But without any sign of where Ben went and plummeting temperatures, the search was stood down after 7 days. Later that spring, Tyner's case was officially considered suspicious. While RCMP Major Crimes did not publicly share murder details, they said there was reason to believe that criminality was involved and that Ben Tyner could have been the victim of homicide. However, more than 6 years later, Tyner still has not been found. Shortly after Ben Tyner went missing, RCMP were directly asked whether any of the disappearances in Spence's Bridge and Merritt areas were related. At the time, police stated officers had looked into whether there was a connection, though they said there was no evidence to suggest any of the disappearances were linked. And as of the summer of 2025, none of these 3 missing men have been located. So, none of these 3 men have been located. I would say Ben Tyner and Luke Neville definitely sound like homicides. And with Dean Morrison, I'm not sure. It seems like he was in a desperate situation unless he had family member or money saved up. Could he have just walked off and ended up dying from exposure, or did he harm himself some way? Did he just leave his life and make it out of there somehow, got a ride from somebody and just left because he was like going through a divorce and had financial problems and he just lost his job? So these 3 men went missing, different years, of course, but a lot of the same circumstances in that they went missing from nearby areas and none of them have ever been found. And none of their, they haven't, their banking stuff, like their checking accounts and stuff like that, have never been used again. It's like they just disappeared off the face of the earth, which, probably means, unless they went to live off grid, that they're deceased. This is a Facebook post about Ben's case that was posted in January of 2024. It says Ben Tyner, 33, was last seen on January 26, 2019 at 2 p.m., leaving the Nicola Ranch near Merritt, British Columbia, where he worked. His horse was found 2 days later on a logging road, but Ben has not been seen again. For reasons they are not revealing, RCMP believe that Ben was murdered. Ben was a 6 foot 4 inch, 230-pound cowboy from Wyoming. According to Crime Stoppers, investigators are now asking anyone who may have seen Tyner the weekend of January 26th, 27th, or a truck and trailer that may have transported him to the Swackham Mountain or OK Forest Service Road off Mammoth Lake Road, to contact Merritt RCMP through a dedicated tip line at 1-877-987-8477 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. This here is the Google Earth view that shows Nicola Ranch in Canada. You can see it's a large rural area, and there are waterways here. There's a lake right here. So if somebody was trying to hide a body, they could do that. Or if somebody wanted to harm themselves, and they could have used a waterway perhaps. But like I said before, the RCMP thinks this is a homicide case. And so just look at the area here. It's just a large area. So I guess finding his body is like a needle in a haystack. And especially if something was done to destroy his body, they will never find it either. But also, they could have just left his body whole somewhere in a rural area or in a forest, and it just was never found. So the Nicola Ranch is over here, and they think perhaps that he drove away in a horse and trailer with somebody, and that I don't know what makes them think this or what evidence they have that he could have went to this area here, this Swackham Mountain Forest Service Road area. And as you can see, it's a very rural road. Lots of trees, just a very rural area. And then just pan out, you can just see there's no homes or businesses in this area for a long way. So if you want to do harm to somebody and then hide their bodies where police can't find it, this would be a good area to do it. And also, they wanted people to call in tips if they happen to see a horse trailer and vehicle traveling near OK Forest Service Road off of Mammoth Lake Road, and this is that area. See some homes and businesses perhaps in this area, but as you can see, all these trees and just very rural area. So I mean, his body could be anywhere, and unless somebody talks or they get lucky and maybe a hunter or a dog happens to discover a bone or like a skull, I guess they won't solve this case. You would think that maybe they should release more information, like if what leads them to think it's a homicide, or maybe some more information so people know what to possibly look for more, like any personal items belonging to Ben Tyner that if they saw on the ground somewhere in the area they need to be aware of. Just a vast open area, and it has waterways, forests, and so just a body can be hidden anywhere. And so this is Nicola Ranch, and they put out a request to people if they saw anything the weekend he went missing over in this area, if a horse and trailer were seen traveling in this area where those rural roads I just showed you were. Just look at all this this vast expanse of nothing. Just zoom out. So apparently they think he traveled with somebody over to this area here, west of this road here, I guess Highway 5, Coquintala Highway, I think it says. So, yeah, so maybe they'll get lucky and find something, find his body, or somebody will talk. But otherwise, it just seems like it's a needle in a haystack. And maybe the police know more. Of course, they know more than they're saying because they won't release information. But maybe, they can't do anything because they can't do anything in Canada without a body. I don't know if they prosecute people without bodies in Canada, or they can't prove anything without a body. So whatever information they have, maybe they should consider releasing a bit more or something. It might help the case. I don't know, maybe make somebody talk or. But anyway, that's just a large, large area. I mean, and who knows how close the horse, when it was found, how close it would be to where Ben may be. Ben could be anywhere. He may be nowhere near where they found the horse. If they think Ben went off with a person with a horse trailer, they could have had his horse on the trailer and took the horse off in a totally different area, and Ben's body could be way somewhere else. And I guess I don't have any phone records to prove who he talked to, who he might have met up with. Was he trying to help somebody? Or like I was saying, did something happen on the ranch? Did somebody come to the ranch? Or did somebody who worked at the ranch or lived at the ranch near Ben harm him? So the police think it's homicide. That's what they said 2 years after he went disappeared, that he went missing. And his body hasn't been found still to this day. So, but, maybe could the police be wrong and not exactly right that it was a homicide? Could he have harmed himself and then, like set it up where he harmed himself and made sure that his horse would run off so his body wouldn't be found because he didn't want people to know he harmed himself? I don't think that's what happened here because the police don't think that's what happened here. But since they won't release information, all I can do is speculate. But it appears that it's going to be a murder because the police think it's a murder. So obviously they know something. And maybe they have enough to know for sure it's a murder, but they don't have enough to prosecute whoever they think murdered him because they don't have a body or any evidence like DNA evidence, physical evidence, or whatever. And I guess they never found the horse and trailer that they think he rode away from the ranch in. And I guess there were no security cameras or anything at the ranch or anything useful like that. And I guess cell phone records were not useful. I mean, if it's true that they found his cell phone, maybe the cell phone information was a bit helpful, but apparently there were no phone calls or text between Ben and somebody else to give him an idea of who he could have went off with or met up with or whatever. So this seems like this might be a mystery forever. This might be one of those cases that never gets solved. And so, as if this case wasn't sad enough, knowing that he's hasn't been found and may not never be found, his family has a missing Ben Tyner Facebook page for him that you could go to. And for example, like last year, August 25th was his birthday. So he would have been 37 last year. So this year he would have been 38. So he'd be 38. If he's still around today, he'd be 38 years old. I know because some like his posters say he was 31 when he went missing. Some articles said he was 32 and some said 33. But obviously his family would know when his birthday was. So the family Facebook page says his birthday is August 25th and that he would have been 37 last year. So this year, obviously, he would have turned 38. So it says, Ben's 37th birthday, a day to celebrate another year of a life and the fullness that life brings. Sadly, we don't get to celebrate with Ben today. We are extremely fortunate to have been able to spend the time with Ben that we had. Our memories of him are precious and keep us going when we have a hard time. We continue to hope and pray that Ben will be found. There is nothing new to report on Ben's case. We still have contact with RCMP, but it is rare and there is nothing new on their end. Your continued support is so special to us, and your prayers are greatly appreciated and an amazing source of comfort for us. May you all receive as many blessings as you have given us. And it says, it's not easy to be without someone you miss, and yet I smile because, missing them means you are blessed to have someone exceptional in your life. And then people commented, happy birthday, sweet Ben, praying for answers. Love to you all. Happy birthday, Ben. Continued prayers for you and your family, Jen. Happy heavenly birthday, Ben. We love and miss you. Happy birthday, Benjamin. Love and hugs to you all. Happy birthday, Ben. Thoughts and prayers continued. And just on, the well wishes for his birthday and for his family. So that's from last year. And I guess to this day, the family still has no updates on the case of their missing son. And he would be 38 years old now. It's September 2025 because his birthday's August the 25th, according to this Facebook post. So anyway, Ben Tyner is 6'4", about 230 pounds, brown hair, dark brown with beard. Or brown eyes and dark brown hair with beard. And that's a picture of him. And that's the same hat they think he was wearing when he went missing, or when he was last seen. He was wearing that hat. So if you have any information, contact the RCMP or call Crime Stoppers or go online and report it. You can call in or report it anonymously online. I don't know if there's still a reward offered, but there might be. I think Crime Stoppers gives rewards anyway. They might have a reward going on. So if you know anything at all, his family needs answers. So please contact the authorities and give them any and all information you have on this young man who is still missing to this day. So that's about this case. I had never heard about this case before, or didn't remember hearing about it if I did. And so I wanted to cover it. I mean, it's a interesting case. A riderless horse just shows up and a man is missing. It's like, it would be a good, nice mystery if it didn't involve, a hurting family and the death of a young man by murder. But hopefully, somehow, someday, some way, this case can be solved. And I'm always hopeful. It just seems when you look at the area where he went missing, that's just too easy of a place to hide bodies that can never be found. And I guess the police, because it's 2025 and he went missing in 2019, that they have no other evidence that they can use to charge somebody with. So anyway, that's the case of Ben Tyner, and I'm going to put some links down below of this video, and so you can watch a real good video about this case that tells the story real well. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.